So against my better judgment, I have re-downloaded Genshin Impact. Previously, I had fallen off a bit before the Sumeru update, and I got back into it because they emailed me with some Freemo gems, which I used to get Scaramouche, so they wrote me in for at least a little bit longer. There was once a time when I thought I wanted to make a big video on Genshin, but people have done that quite well already. And if you care about the game and what it could have been, you're already well aware of its shortcomings. I just wanted to ramble into the internet void about the specific thing in Genshin Impact that, over time, has ground my gears into a fine dust. And that is the lack of a true dialogue skip. I think that giving players the ability to skip large chunks of dialogue is long overdue and would significantly improve the longevity and accessibility of the game. And I'm not talking about any of the fully animated cutscenes or the 2D storybook style lore stuff. All of that is awesome, even having mashed through the stuff leading up to it. And given the option to skip that stuff, I would not. But dog, playing through this Lunar New Year event, you feel it. Put on a show or a podcast or something, because if your primary drives in this game are progression, combat, team building, exploration, these quests have virtually nothing going on. The content is running from point A to point B and then mashing. You fight a dude as Yelan at one point, but trust me, it's mostly mashing. And don't get me wrong, I like the lore and the characters, but I think that Genshin is an unfortunate example of an interesting story told in a very boring way. I've just played too many RPGs at this point, where characters stand around running through the same idle animations while the camera cuts back and forth. It looks like a Neil Breen movie, dog. It looks like Deadly Premonition, a game from 2010 that did its dialogue like this as a bit, and now hella games are comfortable doing it sincerely for hundreds of hours. I understand that 3D animation is expensive and difficult, and Genshin does get creative with the camera angles from time to time, but it doesn't change how saturated this dialogue style is amongst the medium. It's gotten extremely stale for me. And if I was allowed to skip it the way you can in every other gacha game, most of Genshin's other issues would instantly become more bearable for me. Ultimately, the story and gameplay have no impact on each other anyways. Your dialogue choices have never meant anything. No one says anything in dialogue that is crucial to gameplay, and even if they did, it wouldn't matter because you get an objective waypoint anyways. And hey, if the game makes it to September, it's gonna be 3 years old, which means that if we can't skip the dialogue now, it must be deliberate. And here is my theory as to why. The quests are both advertisements for the characters and artificial time wasters to mask the lack of compelling gameplay loops. Additionally, they serve to facilitate more time and commitment from the player via the sunk cost fallacy. You know how in some phone games, they give you the chance to get an extra life or some premium currency if you watch an ad? That is how the vast majority of Genshin quests feel, except the ad is for itself and can be multiple hours long. In a gameplay sense, the primary skill they are testing is your patience, and not in a cool way like pathologic or paratopic or a third similar sounding word. And I have no survivor bias in this. I got to endgame on not one, but 2 accounts. I played daily on both for an embarrassing amount of time. I think that it would be a good thing if a new player could start Genshin Impact tomorrow and get to the point where I'm at in the Archon quest in less than half the time it took me. The lack of a true dialogue skip is just a super transparent wasting of the player's time. It absolutely murders the game's overall sense of pacing, and so much content is locked behind dialogue. I was so happy when I pulled Scaramouche. I was close to pity, but it wasn't guaranteed, so I got pretty lucky. But also, maybe I didn't. Because I immediately realized that the materials needed to level his talents could only be obtained by fighting the Sumeru weekly boss. which I cannot fight because I'm not far enough in the story. And to get that far in the story, I will have to do a lot of mashing. So think about how much mashing a new player who's still in Mondstadt who pulled Scaramouche would have to do. It's very anti-new player and anti-casual player in that sense. Hoyoverse is completely fine with Genshin having 45 minutes max of substantive daily gameplay. Why then make the quests multi-hour long puppet shows that you can't fully skip and can't fully ignore? I will gladly do any part of these quests in which I control my character, cause that is the reason I play this game. Ito and Kazuha are two of the most fun characters that I've played in a video game, which is why, if they really do write the quests to try and sell the characters, it is truly for naught. No one is deciding whether or not to roll for a character based on their personality. Check this out. My Ningguang, I have given her everything. She's kitted out. Near perfect ratio, triple crown, C6, all plus 20s. She's done. I even debased myself and got the skin. She is one of the most powerful and most invested units in my account. And I'm gonna estimate that I have mashed through about 75% of Ningguang's dialogue. And based on everything that I do know about her character, if I was able to actually sit down and talk with her, we would disagree ideologically on a lot. If their personality is cool, that's a plus, but I'd say the vast majority of players are motivated by a character's power level, the fun factor, their design and aesthetic, the synergy potential, the build diversity, you know, the stuff that matters to the core gameplay loop, which the devs have openly admitted will never change substantially from the way it is now, which is basically just collecting and building characters and gear, grinding for resources and artifacts, abyss, events, and quests. And I've already come to terms with that. Some people think that that is the waste of time, holding out hope for some imaginary endgame Genshin content that never will exist. Not me. I've reached acceptance on that front. Even in some hypothetical scenario where dialogue skip is implemented tomorrow and I complete all the quests in a week, I would still log in the next day to blow stuff up with Kazuha. I just want to feel like my time is being respected. I hope you've enjoyed this time in the void with me. I say that because my cries will never be heeded. Hoyoverse is much more interested in making a new gacha game to develop a loyal fanbase there, make a bunch of money, and then abandon the quality of life on that project as well. Which is an unorthodox business strategy, but a boardroom of suits must have told them it'd be profitable in the long run, so we'll see. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. I made this video for complaint's sake anyway. MiHoYo is gonna do whatever they want, and I'm gonna go play the new Fire Emblem and skip all the dialogue in that. Have a fantastic day.